Yeah, she's
All right, we're gonna go straight live here. So we're live. We're talking Singapore. We're talking. We're talking. If you guys are from Singapore, please comment in the comment section below and let us know how crazy it is over there. Because we haven't been, but we listened to the Rogan podcast and they were, talking about all the strict rules. So that was kind of our pre-episode banter there, man. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was the Melissa. I think Melissa Chen is her name on the most recent JRE podcast. It's a good one. It's definitely worth listening to because she, I think she was talking coronavirus a little bit, but I guess she was somebody who at 17 she grew up in Singapore, at 17 moved to the US, so was like kind of talking about stuff. But yeah, evidently, if you're carrying 2 ounces or more of marijuana, the old devil's lettuce, they will hang you.
She was basically saying that like an Australian citizen was he was trafficking, so it wasn't doing anything good. It wasn't just some random guy with just a little bit of weed. He was actually trafficking the marijuana. Didn't leave the airport, and they hung him.
Dude, this is like 21st century. Come on, man. What are hang people in
just
the
like
world?
in the square.
Yeah. Shame.
But this is another episode, Layer1Live, fellas. It's good to have the trio back again.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a good episode here, Mike. If you want to first touch on your trip, man, that
happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday as well.
Thank you.
You're a big boy now.
Almost about 29 now.
Oh,
getting up there.
Nice.
Feel a lot older.
Maybe you can grow a beard sometime.
I'll try. It's still a little patchy for whatever reason. But yeah, man, I'll hit up old Canada, little Toronto action, some eating and some drinking. Shout out to the lady for setting that up. So it was good. I'm hurting a little bit now. I feel like my body is kind of getting used to normal food again, and it's like, where's all the drinks and all the fried chicken and all those things? But
yeah, where's kombucha?
I need that kombucha.
That kombucha. We haven't been just the three of us on Layer1Live in a little while.
It has been. I think it's been about 2 or 3 weeks, man. So hopefully. You guys, it's hard to top the episode you guys did last week, though. You guys, I thought the banter on that episode was amazing. So maybe you guys just axe me from these and move forward.
We need to find you in Singapore with over 2 ounces of weed. Handle itself.
Hey,
sorry,
Q. Let's do a live episode in Singapore. You bring the weed. But hey guys, so we talked about we talked about having a good episode. So we do have breaking news. We have quick news. And then we get into a little bit of our discussion throughout the whole episode. But before we hit that, we kind of want to go through some stats here over the past 7 days. So top 5 countries this week. We got USA coming in at number 1. We got UK. Spain comes in at number 3. Australia, and then Canada. Our top 3 episodes from the past week are the episode with Liquid Apps, Pete K. We had Synthetics. We had Kane Warwick from Synthetics is number 2, and then Joe Petrowski from Polkadot number 3. And honestly, those being in the top 3, that's a hell of a lineup right there, man. That's a hell of a lineup. And
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was hoping Singapore was going to be our top country this week. That'd be hilarious.
They'll invite us over there. But anyways, the last thing, upcoming guest, we do have a little slate of very good guests coming in. So we have Federico from Decentraland. We've got Leighton C from Pool Together, Doug Petcanix from Live Peer, as well as Ross Dold from Eosphere at the end of the month. So appreciate everybody being here. I see Dwayne is in the chat now. He said Steemit acquired by Tron, ? So that is some big news that we'll get to. But without further ado, let's hop into breaking news. So the first piece of news we do have, which I'd like you guys to touch on as I go through this, but FCoin, which was one of the top exchanges over the past, I believe when it first came out, it was like a top 5 exchange. I don't know exactly when the exchange launched, but it was like mid 2018 when they kind of did a lot. I think top of their volume was like 5 or 6 billion in a day. So these were pretty strong volumes on the heels of their token economics, which basically distributed tokens for people that were trading on the platform. So if you traded on the platform, you got FT tokens back in exchange, and you can then sell those tokens. So trading on the platform essentially became free, right? Because then you can sell those tokens back and just have those. But the token economics started to break down a little bit as the price fell. It obviously became kind of a little bit hard on the community there, and I guess the man's name is Jiang, and he put together kind of this blog post here to alert the community that they're now insolvent. But I'm gonna look for his name really quick. Why did I blank on this?
FCoin, I remember they were one. I think they're Chinese based.
Yeah, definitely Chinese based.
But they're one that is. It's kind of like all of a sudden they pop up and it's like, hey, we're doing like $3 billion for volume. It's like, what's going on here, right?
Yeah. So Zhang Jian basically alerted the community pretty much this morning that they're going to be insolvent on about 9,000 to 15,000 Bitcoin. So that's a ton of money. But basically, the token economic model broke down to the point where they actually started to use company funds and personal funds to then try a token buyback to keep this token afloat. That didn't work, and they ended up losing all of their capital that they had stored, obviously for like continued runway. And just this morning, he basically said that there's about 7,000 to 15,000 BTC outstanding. He's going to create a new company essentially, and he's going to try to pay this back over time. I believe the time limit was 3 years. So. Good Lord. Very weird little blog post that I'll link here in the description. It's in Chinese, so you'll have to use the translate tool. But very weird post, very like emotionally laden, if that makes sense. But yeah, what do you guys think about this insolvency?
FCoin got effed. Well, you know what? Just from the start, from what you told me, how the structure was in terms of fees and the rebates, and I don't understand what they were thinking, because if you're trading, you get this FCoin as a rebate for the fees, to make it free for you to trade on the platform. You're gonna dump that FCoin right to redeem that rebate, right? So therefore, there's gonna be that constant pressure on the price to go down for FCoin, and it's inevitable for it to just reach really low point where it's like the rebate becomes so insignificant, and the token economics is not going to make sense. So I think this was like a flawed right in the beginning of it, right? Instead of holding, you don't have to hold FCoin to right. Have less fees to trade like BNB, right? This is actually you trading and getting FCoin back, right?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, there might be some other intricacies there. I obviously haven't used FCoin, but It seems to me like they were trying to, in the short term, use FCoin to increase the amount of fees that they were getting, basically, right? So it's like, hey, here's this token we created, right? If you let us keep all the trading fees, we'll give you this token, right? But to your point, because the exchange is one where they're claiming $4 and $5 and $6 billion, it's probably the case that they had so much wash trading happening there. And so many players who were dominating that volume number, it's not real organic volume, right? That when that, per Q's point, when that token price started to fall, as those people back out, they try to prop it up, try to get them back in, and the whole thing kind of collapses on itself. It's
trading volume drops.
So, yeah. I think there was another aspect of this, Dima, and might be the reason for a lot of the users to actually hold the FT token, was that you would get a percentage of the fees paid to the exchange. So fees paid to the exchange would then go to stakers, which is a common practice now. Like you see that we just had Kane work on. That's what they do for their stakers on synthetics, is basically the more liquidity that's going on, the more volume that's happening on the exchange, it goes to those stakers, which I think was the issue here. But the token price, I believe, got inflated so much just arbitrarily, like you're saying. And then when people were getting in at the top, and then the token price started to fall because, it just started to collapse. Basically, the scheme started to collapse. Then it just became like one of those death spirals we talk about. So,
yeah, it's tough to see. Obviously for those users who were trading on FCoin, but this is one of those reasons that you really got to make sure if you are going to not just be a buy and hold guy, if you're going to trade. Make sure you're obviously on exchanges that are legitimate.
Yeah.
So, sorry to see that.
Yeah, just to wrap a bow on it, Zhang Jian was the former CTO at Huobi, and he actually reached out to the CEO Lee Lin at Huobi as their funds started to run out because they were trying this buyback of this token, and it obviously goes through in this article and talks about how he approached Lee Lin to try to figure out something, and the guy said, "Hell no, I'm not doing that." So it looks like they're gonna do email. They're gonna do an email withdrawal process. That's what they're talking about over a certain amount of period of time, so users can, over time, hopefully receive their funds back.
Is there info on how much is locked up there?
Yeah, I don't think it's locked up. I think it's just they don't have any funds to pay users back for the funds that are in the actual exchange.
Oh my God!
I mean, it's pretty clear they used user funds to prop up
Jesus
FCoin,
Christ,
right?
Yeah.
Like,
so basically, he said he's. It was very, like, if you read the actual article, it's really kind of crazy because he like hit the last line of the whole thing is like, I'll dedicate the rest of my life to figuring this out, right? And it's just like, oof. So. It looks like they burned the rest of the FT tokens held by the team. So it's pretty much just they're cleaning their hands of this. Hopefully his next project can secure, some type of funding for the users that got screwed there. The last bit of breaking news, so I can let you guys, hop into this. I don't want to take up too much of the time, but Edgeware actually, the parachain on Polkadot actually went live this morning. So I was on the call. It got delayed a couple of times. I know like Edgeware was slated to, I think, come out last year. It was like a 2019 launch. And the Polkadot chain actually like moved their launch back as well. Like the Polkadot main chain isn't even live now, I believe. So Edgeware is going ahead. They launched on a call this morning. I was actually on that community call. So not much to report from like usage on Edgeware yet. It's just kind of like a smart contract platform. Hopefully they can, do the next step, which is attract validators as well, which are essentially nodes, and also attract like a governing council. That's the two steps I heard from the community call. Obviously you want to start having usage on the platform, so we'll see how they go about doing that. But it's cool to see another chain, pop up within Polkadot.
Yeah, definitely. We had I think it was Tom Ivy from Edgeware, right? Yeah, Tom Ivy from Edgeware on the podcast. So if you have no idea what you're talking about, if you don't know what Edgeware is, go listen to that. They're definitely what I would call kind of a sleeper project right now. They did a lock drop, which is a kind of a new hybrid airdrop model. Really interesting things happening over there. So yeah, congrats to Tom, congrats to the team on that mainnet going live.
Yeah. So QQ was there when they cut the ribbon, huh?
Yeah, I was holding the scissors.
Nice.
It was interesting, man. I had never been on a like mainnet launch call. I'm sure they happen all the time.
Did they do the countdown?
It was funny because they had like a Zoom technical difficulty. So when the actual first block was minted, produced, like nobody saw it. So it was just like, it was pretty funny. But I'll drop a link actually, if I can, in the chat so you guys can see actually the blocks being produced on Edgeware. But for the people that lock dropped, that was like kind of their mechanism to distribute tokens to the community. For the people that lock dropped, there is a lot of interesting information and kind of like guides that you can use to like access your now live Edge tokens. Hopefully we see a Binance listing here soon. That's what we're kind of hoping for. But other than that, we're just waiting it out. Hopefully we'll start staking our Edge if it doesn't get too enticing on the exchange. Right.
Yeah, for sure. For those kind of wondering why the Binance in this, final point here before we move on to quick news, for those wondering why kind of that Binance speculation is happening, is because whenever the lock drop was occurring, Binance basically locked up a lot of ETH for their users. So, you can obviously then assume that Binance has some position in Edgeware, and when Binance has a position, they obviously do things to help out that protocol. So we will keep you guys posted on that front. Like I said, go ahead, listen to that podcast, get some more info. But moving on here, because we got a ton of info to get to. Quick news. Dima and I are going to run through this. Interesting news from Tether, USDT, whatever you want to call it, right? The largest stablecoin in crypto has partnered with Chainalysis, whatever you want to call it here, to add an anti-money laundering compliance tool, which is significant because Tether has, for a lot of reasons, basically kind of been this gray market or black market stable coin, where Paxos and USDC and all the others that have come out have really sold themselves as the regulated stable coin. So it seems that USDT is moving towards something that's a little more compliant. We'll talk a bit about this more when we get to some of the things that are happening in the US with the Treasury Secretary. So interesting things there with Tether, great for Chainalysis. On the kind of money laundering front, if you will, an Ohio resident was charged with laundering over $300 million in Bitcoin for what was the most popular darknet marketplace, Alphabet. So basically what this guy did, about 30 miles south of Cleveland in Bath Township, was use a Bitcoin mixer service called Helix that worked in conjunction with Alphabet to basically mix the Bitcoin, which is a way to basically launder money. It kind of skews the paper trail, if you will, with Bitcoin, and makes it a lot harder to understand where that Bitcoin has come from and where it's going. So it's whenever it had happened, it was about 354,000 Bitcoin, which at the time of the transactions was estimated to be, like I said, a little over 300 million.
Good
if you
Lord.
put that into today's prices, it's almost $4 billion of Bitcoin. So this was not a small operation. But unfortunately, Mr. Harmon will be in jail for a significant amount of time here.
Thank God he's from Ohio and not Singapore.
He's not in Singapore. Yeah.
He'd have been dead already.
That's crazy. All right, moving right along. Novogratz crypto investment firm Galaxy Digital shrinks workforce by 15%. Now, this headline might be kind of like striking, right, at first, but if you actually read it, it's really not that big of a deal. They're really just reshuffling a little bit of the staff. They still have like nearly 80 people remaining on staff, and really the core people, like the traders and investment guys, are still on the team. Galaxy Digital overall, they're sitting on a lot of bags, so their portfolio is quite volatile. As a matter of fact, in 2018, they struggled a lot. In 2019, they started kind of turning around. They also say in the article here for Galaxy Digital that they're looking to hire more people for new openings, but they didn't describe what kind of openings for the positions will be available for Galaxy Digital, and it's not listed right now on their site. So it's not I don't think it's a big of a deal. It's just a little bit of a shuffling around with staff and adapting, because crypto moves quickly. Certain people that were doing certain roles are not necessary anymore.
Whoever bought all that wax for him is totally gone.
Yeah.
Wax had a pump for a little. We'll get to that later. But what do you guys? So what they bought? Galaxy Digital bought at the top.
Oh yeah,
Wax?
big time. They were down like at the bottom of the bear market. It was like 99.7% down on Wax, because he has to publicly report all of it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how much you would have like that. How much allocation of his portfolio to Wax of itself.
It was many millions of dollars.
Really? What?
Oh yeah, it was
the total market cap is like, what is the total market cap of Wax?
Yeah, but he bought it all. It was
when the market cap was higher.
Oh, I gotcha.
I don't think he even bought it on open market. I think he bought it at whatever valuation they gave themselves.
Yeah,
privately
in the beginning. Yeah,
and then it was worth. It was like a $30-some million position that was worth like $3 million. Some I think is what it was.
It's a long-term trade.
Long-term.
Anyway, this is a quick news segment, so we're gonna keep moving along. Japan planning for digital yen. Now, this continues to happen all over the world, especially in Asia. Japan has basically came out saying, the officials there saying that, hey, Libra is coming up, and we got China that's looking to start creating digital yuan. So they need to stay, more relevant and make sure that, this doesn't impact the yen when all of these digital currencies start to come out. The article basically talks about them providing guidelines and working on this, but overall, in the end, it looks like it's not coming anytime soon. They said anywhere between 1 to 3 years, or they have clear picture and guidelines and everything ready for it. So
Japan's a big, when it comes to global GDP, they're up there.
Right.
Right. I mean, they're probably top 10. I think.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Yeah, that's a big one. And I, not now, but at some point I want to get to your conspiracy theory.
Oh yeah,
if we have time here in Layer 1Q. I don't think you've heard it yet, but Deem's got an interesting
Yeah.
tinfoil hat theory on kind of
Place it.
I might have to trademark it, man, or copyright it, man. People be stealing my ideas.
Yeah, they had that. I think Justin had that New York apartment or New York hotel bug, dude.
For sure, man. All right.
Well, before you get to that, thanks for stopping by, everybody. We got 18 people sitting in the chat right now. Guys, we're hitting the quick news right now. We kind of already talked about the team updates, but we're going to talk about a lot of the goings on within like mini chains, right? So we've got Ethereum, we've got Bitcoin, we've got a ton on here.
Binance,
Steemit acquiring, Binance, Ripple,
Stello.
Yep, pretty much everything. So, Dima, keep going, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to everybody in the chat.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so the next piece is Binance Futures launches perpetual swap for NEO and ONT ontology.
Yep.
So 50x, go for it.
We like to keep you guys updated on what Binance is launching. I mean, I think we're getting kind of towards the end of that. For at the beginning it was exciting, but now Binance has so many different perpetual swaps out there, or just obviously various altcoin futures listed, even if not perp swaps. But yeah, NEO and ontology have been added. So
I can't wait to talk about Binance later on a little bit. So I feel a little bit passionate about that subject. So
yeah, no doubt. Well, we got some good stuff coming up. We're going to move into kind of a longer term discussion here. Mm-hmm. I know when we started Layer1Live, Tron and Steemit was a big one. We've got Q's favorite team, Barcelona, to talk about.
Don't slander me like that.
Trump and Secretary Munchin are going to try to keep the FUD coming in 2020, and some classic crypto drama with IOTA and bZx. So what's going on with Barcelona, Q?
Yeah, so Barcelona actually partnered with Chili's, and I think pre-podcast or pre-episode we were talking about how we knew Chili's, because I think you said that something about a $60 million raise ICO. I think we may have I think we directly led to all of the investment that went to Chili's through ICO.
Yeah. I don't think so. And this is not Applebee's cousin Chili's. This is Chili's. Sort of, token app. So.
Yeah, not Applebee's. I guess better looking cousin. I don't know. Chili's or Applebee's. I don't think I've set foot in one in like 10 years. But basically, startup Chili's actually partnered with Barcelona, and Barcelona is going to launch their own team token. So the BAR, so BAR, and that token is going to be distributed to fans and purchased by fans to actually, and I think they say it in the article, give voting power to the fans of Barcelona on team moves. Now that nothing was, decided. They, the fans couldn't kind of get together and say, hey, we want to trade Lionel Messi or anything. But it is cool to see. I know we had Crypto Kaiju, and we're gonna launch that episode shortly. But it is really cool to see tokens make their way into professional sports, right? Crypto Kaiju had partnered with the Sacramento Kings to launch this NFT collectible that the Sacramento Kings distribute, to people when they get to the arena. And it's good to see Barcelona actually partnering with Chili's to launch a token, the BAR token, for their fans. It says the BAR token will be initially priced at €2, so about $2.15 USD, with a total supply of 40 million. Fans can purchase the token via Socios and Chili's app. So again, it'll be interesting to see what they use this token for, but it's cool to see, I guess in theory, that fans could have more control of their, of their team. It's cool to see that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're all obviously sports fans, various sports. So it's a cool crossover. For those that don't remember, Juventus is planning the same thing with the JUV token. And I guess so far, essentially 200,000 worth of those tokens have been sold. So you've got kind of Ronaldo's club in Juventus battling it out with Messi's club in Barcelona here as they kind of move forward. I've been impressed with the European soccer teams who, seem to have kind of seen this and just gobbled it up. Right? Yeah. Like it took the NBA a long time. I don't know if we'll ever get there with the NFL.
Yeah.
But they seem to just kind of have have jumped on it and run with it. So I've been impressed there.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see the biggest fans for Barcelona to be like Binance and Huobi that hold the most tokens, and make the decisions for the team. So
it will be interesting to see like what percentage of all of these tokens will actually be used in like voting powers. Like when there's an actual decision to be voted on, is it going to be like these 40 million tokens are worth 3% of the actual vote of actually what's happening? So and then different clubs work differently, right? Like sometimes a board actually meets and figures out, and I don't think that they might, but they make like player personnel decisions. Whereas in the NFL and obviously a lot of other sports franchises, you have GMs that just make those decisions. But it will be interesting to see if it's like a front office decision or if it's like players on the field. So yeah, man, that'll be really cool. I like what you talked about with like European clubs too, because me and one of our buddies, Andrew, we were at Watford, and they're one of the Premier League clubs with the big Bitcoin logo that they partnered with. Yeah, so they got the Bitcoin Foundation to partner and sponsor on their logo. So really cool.
Beautiful.
I think there was recently. I think there was like a Binance jersey or something like that. This girl was wearing dancing in NBA or something like that in US. It was Binance US doing advertisement. I saw a video about it.
Yeah.
You saw that?
Yeah, it was Catherine Coley. She's the CEO of Binance US.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that video, Q?
No, I thought that was like going to be a dream Dima had, but no, I didn't see it.
No, it was cool. It was just something fun on Twitter.
Yeah.
Catherine Coley, she's the CEO of Binance US, and somehow made it out onto like a halftime show or something at an NBA game, and it was like a dance-off competition, and she killed it. So shout out to her. Yeah, had the Binance jersey on, rocking that. So we're crypto is slowly or quickly moving into professional sports in a variety of different ways here. In the same way, kind of here as we migrate, if you will, to the Tron story. Tron is
Mike
Tron
loves
is moving,
a good segue.
Tron is moving its way to basically every acquisition it can possibly find here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got this next story, but before we actually go into it, and I know Dwayne actually had this question. He says, curious about ramifications around rewards, like payouts in Tron. What does this mean for Steam dApp development? Nothing, or a sign of broader Steam implications? Now, before we get to this story, we were at Consensus last year, and we were having a good time late at night. We had gone back to the hotel, and we just had a couple drinks, and we were just, I think to Ryan over at Tron, his word is ideating. We were talking about kind of like just broad things we were thinking, whether that they were as crazy as possible or something common. But Dima, what idea did you kind of touch on that maybe is making itself known in crypto now?
Yeah. So we were talking about, I think, Block One, and we were talking about how the Ethereum killers and so on, right? And then the idea that I came out with was, all right, well, what if Block One unlocks their funds, their 4 billions, and then starts basically acquiring other chains by making deals, let's say with Tron. Hey, listen, we got to take on ETH. So the only way we can do this is just to consolidate, and therefore we'll grab all the user bases that we have and consolidate and have more power to go against ETH. And we did some math in terms of market caps, how much it would need to purchase it and so on. So it was very interesting. We'll see, we were talking about, actually it was EOS, Tron, and IOSD, I think, those three that we were talking about, where if they both all of them acquired
Three Musketeers,
each other, then they would be able to take over ETH, and that was kind of a joke, but now it's looking like
you
more...
said back then, you said you were going to write an article about it. You'd have been like,
wow.
I know,
you'd have looked like a savant, but
I know,
no article, no savant status.
Damn.
It could have been a retweet. Little retweet action where you're like, hey, I called this stuff.
Dude, I'm gonna find the video. I said it on a podcast somewhere, man.
Yeah, I mean, basically, in the story here, Tron is at it again, right? This is Justin Sun's MO. He's going out, and instead of kind of organically bringing users or projects or whatnot to Tron, he's just seemingly buying them. So BitTorrent was obviously a giant one. Steemit now, I would say, is right up there, around the same size as BitTorrent. there's kind of some back and forth on whether it's a partnership or an acquisition, but I believe the Steemit founder or CEO basically came out and was like, "Hey, Justin came to me, gave me a price tag, and I agreed." So it seems to me like at least behind the scenes, there's some sort of money changing hands with the eventual goal for Tron to just continue to add activity, right? I mean, we saw this with Tether quite a bit, where essentially what was happening was on Huobi, Justin Sun was offering some crazy interest if you moved your Tether to Huobi and basically lended it out via the Tron blockchain, right? So he was trying to incentivize people to use Tether on Tron and show all this activity happening. He was offering like 15 to 20% interest or something on like a rolling monthly basis. Like it was just, a great way, to get a ton of money flowing into the Tron blockchain. And, that's seemingly his goal here with Steemit as well is, okay, let's bring more users in. Let's bring more activity. EOS has launched their voice. How can we go out and get a social media platform?
Bam.
Boom, Steemit done.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. And, a lot of the platforms that are coming out of the Asian region, I feel like, because we just talked about FCoin, right? Like with that F exchange, but like they're using like some type of gamification, some would call it a Ponzi scheme, to kind of spur growth in a network, very rapidly, right? Like where growth would take usually 2 years, they get it in 2 months. But what's the viability of that? So yeah, basically touching on what you said, the Steem token will move to the Tron network in the future. So answering the ramification part of that, most likely, I really can't even say most likely, but it'll be interesting to see how Steemit fits in to Tron in the future. So I'm assuming there will still be a Steem token. It'll just be on the Tron network. So basically, I don't know if that indicates any type of payouts in Tron. I'm not certain that would ever happen. As far as your question about what does this mean for Steem dApp development, I don't know about that either. Maybe all the internal team does work on whatever dApps they have on Steem currently. I'm not as bullish on like the community kind of meshing with this community. That's always kind of like the pushback I've had on these chain acquisitions, quote unquote. It's like we had Pete on the podcast the other day, and he kind of related the communities to a lot of these networks to like religious fanatics. So when you have Tron, you kind of have a Christianity, and I'm not saying Tron is Christianity. But, I'm just using this as an example. Maybe you had Islam as, just in this example, Islam is Steem, and Tron is Christianity. Now you have these two communities that really don't believe the same things, right? Like, and you're asking them to now merge together and participate in things and do things together. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me, nor do I think that it'll work. So I'm not really bullish on any of this news, these chain acquisition news, but
you just need a common enemy.
Yeah,
sure. And then you'll be okay. Remember we talked about Tron and what was it, Bitcoin, right? Or ETH, where Tron basically started trolling maximalists.
Yeah, and that was the whole kind of discussion we had last week on Layer1Live about the whole Justin Sun, my project is a shitcoin kind of talk. But I mean, listen, right? Like we said last week, Justin Sun remains in the news, and to me, I think probably what we see as next steps is we see a ton of drama internally at Steemit, right? We're going to see a lot of people leave, because that's literally happened every other time this has occurred. There's always news and drama and rumors around Tron not being managed well. Kind of, mass firings and all this, right? So I think as more businesses come under the Tron umbrella, it's not necessarily going to get worse, right? As this expansion occurs. I think you'll probably see that first, right? You'll see some fallout. But after that, you'll see Tron be able to basically say, hey, look at all of this activity we have on the blockchain, right? And basically throw up this usage flag, right? Or this activity flag, if you will, to say, hey, all these other blockchains don't have any activity, but we have this many millions of users or whatever. We have all this activity. So therefore we are going to win this, this ETH killer competition. I think that's what his focus is right now. I think Justin Sun understands that the next step of growth is going to be around actual usability happening, actual activity happening on blockchains, and those blockchains that don't have that activity in the same way, you know, you would just be a mobile app, right? They're going to kind of die off. So, you know, time will tell if Steemit continues to exist and BitTorrent continues to exist and grow and all this, right? I mean, that's you know, the case with any app, the case with any project. But at minimum, Justin Sun is doing a very good job of kind of, like I said, throwing that flag up and saying, hey, look at this ecosystem, look at all this activity, look at all this, you know, hopeful or potential for growth.
Yeah. Yeah, just in general, I really like how he's acquiring real assets. And, you know, he talked about how he's a fan of Warren Buffett, and, you know, he had that lunch with him. And, you know, he read a lot of his books where basically talking about finding value and acquiring real assets, you know, especially when they're undervalued during bear markets and so on. And I think he's doing real well because he picked up Poloniex, he picked up BitTorrent, you know, like he picked up D-Live, Steemit, like
about Polo.
Like, yeah, exactly, Polo, you know. So this guy's got a big shopping cart, you know, during the bear market, and he's just picking up all these assets that have real users, you know, real tech and everything. So I think, you know, that's pretty good.
Polo makes sense to me because it's not necessarily integrating itself with Tron, correct? Like he just has like he's shilling Tron a bunch through like the Poloniex exchange, Twitter, and things like that. But so I totally get that, like acquiring like assets kind of within within the same industry but kind of different sectors. It just doesn't. It's not clear to me how you can go about like forcing the Steam community into the Tron community. So that'll be interesting, man. It's a good discussion. Let us know what you think about you know, Steemit moving itself towards Tron. Again, a lot of these acquisitions with D-Live, like Poloniex you talked about, they're all, I wish there was just a little bit more transparency, and we always say that, and it's always just like, who cares? 'Cause nothing's ever going to change with that. But I just wish I knew exactly what that meant, just like the rest of the community. What is acquiring D-Live actually going to mean for the users on D-Live? What is acquiring Steemit going to do to the users within Steemit? It's not. It doesn't make itself readily apparent quick enough for the community, I think.
Yeah, and it's not, that's a great point, because we haven't really seen Tron bring a lot of value other than just kind of a flash in the pan with PR to these companies that they're buying. Maybe it does in the future, who knows? But for now, it's just kind of like, hey, boom, Tron does this, and then there's a little bit of fallout, and then everybody, you know, kind of goes on their way. But it hasn't been long since a lot of this has happened either. I mean, you know, give the guy more than a year or a few months to deliver growth and deliver value.
In crypto, we want it now,
right?
In a week.
100% gains in a week.
Yeah.
Just to, I probably shouldn't even talk about this any longer because we've been on this topic for so long, but it reminds me of kind of God, in like a historical perspective, it reminds me of like how countries expanded and had like their little outposts. For example, like the UK in like India, they would do a much better job of I think they would have an easier job of kind of establishing some type of proxy and just being like, hey, like you guys can do what you want over here, you know, like whether that's the CEO of Steemit now and just leaving him in power and just saying you guys can do whatever you want, but we're like kind of, you're within the Tron blockchain now, as opposed to coming in and being like, you guys need to just change everything, right? Because you see that play out in a historical perspective. It's never good for the conquering, you know, country to kind of change what's going on within that little ecosystem that's happening.
Right. Yeah. So, time will tell.
It's kind of like white labeling. I think that's what we was talking about. But moving right along from this beautiful topic to the next beautiful topic. And today is a special day in United States. If you guys don't know, it is President's Day. So therefore, we obviously have a headline with Trump. Trump's 2021 budget proposal seeks to optimize crypto policing. Uh-oh.
Yeah. What does this mean, right? I mean, we got this, and then we also got a article from the Treasury Secretary. It's this is kind of the the beginning FUD that we will continue to see in the bull market.
Yeah.
That would be my reminder to people. The article doesn't really give you a lot of good information on what is actually coming. It's just basically saying that, hey, in this new completely ridiculous giant, multi-trillion-dollar budget that Trump has set up for 2021, he is pushing additional funding to the Secret Service, to I think the CIA, Department of Homeland Security, all sorts of different divisions that have any sort of oversight with financial crimes, AML, cryptocurrencies, right, to make sure that any sort of digital currency crime is mitigated. It's funny, Chainalysis, who we talked about in the quick news, has popped up in this article again, basically saying that the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service, and branches within the Treasury Department have already spent millions of dollars on blockchain analytics with Chainalysis. So, if anything to learn from these articles, it's that if you hold equity in Chainalysis right now, you're very happy because they're killing it on this front.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so this proposal is basically a proposal from Trump. And just so you know, obviously, he legally cannot impose that as a law. It's a long way from becoming the law. And it was just a proposal. So it basically has to go to U.S. House of Representatives to start this whole process. So it's kind of just the very beginning stages. They're talking. They obviously know the things that are going on, money laundering, terrorist sponsoring, and all that stuff that's going on. On the dark side of crypto, and they're investigating to find a solution to this problem. But the thing is, even with Chainalysis, they're doing so much work already, right? But they still, cannot handle the private tokens, right? That site where Moneros and so on, right? They can do the other stuff where you can be trackable, but the privacy coins are still, is still pretty much, flourishing in that sector. So I don't know how that's gonna change, but I guess if you close up, other, big loopholes in Bitcoin and whatnot, because they did say Bitcoin is mostly used still, as the laundering, terrorist sponsoring, and so on. So if you close that, maybe that'll limit, to a certain extent. So
to date, we have mostly seen governments and regulatory bodies focus on the on and off ramps of cryptocurrency, right? And I think that's what the FATF, the FATF task force is focusing on, right? They really want to make sure that every business out there that interacts with cryptocurrency has the right tools, has the right setup to ensure that there are not criminals who are, to your point, laundering their money through that avenue. I think the fear from people and kind of the risk within crypto is always that there's going to be some sort of broader regulatory crackdown where Trump or the US or, some sort of SEC or FinCEN type is going to come out and say, hey, Bitcoin transactions over $1,000 are illegal or something like that, right? Or there's going to be some sort of kind of broader fight against it. But if you look past just the article title and kind of the clickbait that you tend to get from a Bloomberg or a Forbes, it does still seem to be focusing on that AML, money laundering, right? How do we kind of, to your point, Dean, close those loopholes so that terrorists or whomever aren't using these exchanges or whatnot to launder money?
I'll never forget watching Banking with Bitcoin. That was like one of my first, when I first got introduced to Bitcoin, that was like one of the first documentaries I watched. And it was an amazing documentary. But I remember just like from an uninitiated perspective, how much my blood was boiling even then with the guy that created the Bit license. How at the end of it, they said, yeah, he pretty much left his post and, started this, private consulting agency that pretty much like navigated people through the laws that he created, and it'll be interesting to see how they go forward with that. But what did you guys think about, because we didn't have the Layer1Live, what did you guys think about that SEC proposal that's possibly going to be brought up with that 2-year kind of hiatus for any type of oversight onto companies like raising through ICO or just like crypto companies in general?
So I thought
I think we have the same perspective here.
So I mean, it's funny because that when it first came out, it was kind of flash in the pan, but it's just like, I don't know. I feel like crypto Twitter blew up and they're like, wow, this is amazing and everything. But then if you really think about it, it's just like, really, it's just a proposal that somebody just said. And really, how realistic is it going to be when you think about inner workings, right? If I can just do this and then shut down after a couple of years, man, my hands are clean, watch my money, I'm done. So I don't know. That one is a little bit far stretched.
Yeah. Additional context is Hester Pierce, right? Crypto mom. Somebody
Crypto
who's
mom.
always, that's her nickname,
Nice.
I think. She's always on the forefront of crypto and does some amazing things to push crypto forward, make sure that the US is not falling behind in this new technology. But I think you're exactly right. It was a very clickbaity thing that made it sound like, hey, the SEC is proposing this, when really it's just someone who's very pro crypto coming out with something that to me will never get approved, because it's basically shielding crypto companies from securities laws for a multi-year period, which regulation has moved away from and tried to seek clarity on for the past 5 years, 3 to 5 years. So why kind of go back and let this free for all, this wild west that they've been trying to shut down for so long continue? Because if you get 2 to 3 years where, hey, my token is allowed to kind of further itself in decentralization, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, okay, well, we disobeyed all these securities laws and did all these illegal things, but we were still under that 3-year period, so it's okay. So, oh yeah, you're right. Okay,
dude, the Ponzi only ran for 2 years.
Exactly. You can't get us. We're within that we're within that time frame. So while it would be cool to see, I think while it would foster innovation, I just don't really think it's realistic, and that's not really why we touched on it last week.
Yeah, so. I think it was a little bit more where you kind of like see the iceberg in the distance, and it's like, oh, that looks cool, and then you like look a little deeper, you're like, that actually makes no sense. So yeah, to your guys' point, that's true. I think Caitlin Long is always going to be my crypto mom, which is who I think of when I hear that. But I actually didn't know the girl at the SEC. So
yeah. But yeah, she does a great job again. Just reiterating that point. But some final kind of regulatory points here before I talk IOTA. There was another article that came out on Bloomberg. So the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, who's like kind of a little Weasley looking guy with glasses that every once in a while comes up and FUDs crypto. So there was also an article that, basically a speech that he talked about. I think it was Wednesday of last week, maybe, or might have been Monday. We were like just finishing up Layer1Live, I feel like, and it was like, boom, Mnuchin has said this about crypto. But my kind of question to you guys here is that, so with Trump's budget and that news coming out about crypto policing, while at the same time Mnuchin is basically going on record and saying, hey, there are going to be some things coming down the pipeline from a regulatory standpoint, right? Transparency, right? We want to make sure that every single cryptocurrency transaction is not used for money laundering. What is spurring this, right? Because they both, I don't think, we're now just coincidentally talking about all of this crypto policing that's going to be happening. So my question to you guys is, what could possibly be happening behind the scenes that the Secret Service or the CIA or somebody has now been made aware of that would spur such a response from the president and from the Treasury Secretary to say, oh, hey, don't worry, like, some shit's about to hit the fan from a regulatory standpoint.
Are you trying to provoke that the conspiracy theory that I have?
I'm trying to. I think now might be a good time to go into that. It's an interesting.
No, yeah, absolutely. So I think like with the geopolitical tensions right now, with the tariffs and everything, where certain products get like isolated, and so on, from the global trade. I think and then you have these digital currencies coming out for different countries, then you kind of bypassing the tariffs and political tensions, and you try to remain your the same trading style as before. So it's it's like the answer from US basically saying, hey, we know something is interesting is happening on that side, where you can use crypto to do settlements for the goods that otherwise would be tariffed,
Right.
and so on. So
to me, it's kind of like mom or dad like smelling illegal, drugs in your car and be like, you know what, I'm gonna look into this. Like, I can tell something's going on here, but I'm not really sure what. I can't prove it, but something's coming down the line, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But the conspiracy theory that I had,
get ready.
So basically, we know that what's happening between Hong Kong and China, right? There's been a lot of tension there, and China couldn't get a grip on HK. And essentially, HK is a big part of Chinese economy. So because of the unrest there, you have all this instability, and it impacts their GDP in a negative way. Since China can't find a solution for this HK problem, boom, coronavirus. Because there's this virus, it unites people together to fight against the common enemy of a virus. And then also at the same time, you get to blame your GDP, going down because of the virus. At the same time, you get in UN support to subsidize to build new hospitals, and then also
the UN supported or subsidized building of hospitals. What amount?
No, not subsidized to pay for the hospitals, but they did offer, I think it was like over 2 million in UN aid. To basically,
which is peanuts for what they're losing, but
and also at the same time, China just came out with the $200 billion stimulus package. So so all of this is happening. It's very interesting. This sequence of events, and there's a lot of speculation about how this virus was like designed by a lab like close to the the fish shop where it's the virus starts spreading in Wuhan. So there's a lot of fishy stuff going on.
Before you start off, Dwayne's in the chat and he said, "Oh, you said Corona," and I have to say that's Dima's ESL kicking in, right, Dima?
Yeah.
But absolutely. Just like I kind of got thrown off by that little tangent, but I think there is a lot of truth to what you're talking about. I think we'll never really know exactly what happened. Obviously, it's just like shrouded as is everything over there. But dude, to be honest, did you see the numbers on the amount of people traveling to China now? Like it's plummeted to like 3,000 in a day.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine. I guess if they were gonna experience some downturn anyways, which I think, to your guys' point, like this is like something that's happening throughout the world, right? It's like a global, like people kind of feel this global crisis kind of coming on, and that's to Dwayne's point in the chat, which I'll get to in a second. But dude, the risk to reward here, like you just like completely tanked your country's economy. Like half of the, like 10% of the world's being quarantined right now. They have nobody coming into the country. How much is this hurting on a daily basis of what China's doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, the conspiracy theorists would probably say, well, they tried to do something like that, give themselves an excuse, and it just went terribly wrong, right? And now they're dealing with those consequences. That's not necessarily my belief. My kind of the interesting thing to me looking at this through a crypto lens is that I cannot remember a time in crypto when we had so many bullish things happening for Bitcoin and for crypto, and so many kind of like, whoa, I don't know, things happening with the macro economy. I'm not necessarily concerned with general prices of stocks. I'm a little more concerned with the fact that we haven't seen a significant pullback in 12 years now, right? And cycles happen for a reason, and it happens more than 2 or 3 times, right? There's a pattern there, and because that hasn't happened, I think there's a little more uncertainty to be had. But when you throw in the coronavirus and look at the Chinese stock prices and look at the growth that China has had,
the global trade, that's huge,
massive, right? Number 2 behind the US. You look at their inflation, you look at the issues that they're having with their currencies, both the internationally traded ones and the domestic one. When you build all of that in alongside Bitcoin's halving, alongside the real world growth that say ETH has had, and alongside all of kind of this institutionalization of crypto as a digital gold. I mean, what happens 3 months from now? What happens 6 months from now? If both continue in that direction, if those trends continue, if this bullish trend continues, and this very uncertain or kind of bearish trend within the global economy continues, what happens? We get to a waterfall point where this all just kind of hits real hard, and we see crazy price action within crypto, and we see a massive global dump, or do they kind of waver off here and chill for a little bit. So that's what I'm most interested in when looking at like all of the different things that are happening with coronavirus and with regulation, and it's a weird time right now for sure.
Yeah, so Dima, just tying back into like what you were talking about, you think that this was like a state-sponsored epidemic, essentially?
Yeah, to a certain point. I mean, it was used as a tool to basically bring people together against a common enemy and unite like HK back with China because of that, and then also to cover up the GDP that slowdown that they would have because of HK and China tensions and so on.
Interesting.
But it's not a financial advice. Just want to make sure I say that this is just pure speculation.
This is Monday morning. Hat for sure.
Yeah, we appreciate the insight from the community as well. Dwayne's in here. He says the presidential response, and this goes back to your original question, Mike. Like just the cryptocurrency policies and things like that. But presidential response is a result of their anticipation of a major depression and dollar failure stemming from the debt crisis and sparked by the Wuhan flu, China production shutdown, kill the competition while they can in anticipation of a Venezuelan situation here in North America. I think that was like comparing Venezuela to the U.S. I know like pride cometh before the fall here, but I don't think like we'll ever get to a Venezuelan situation. But some type of near concept isn't that far off, I guess. I don't think we're that far. I don't think we're that close to a absolute shit show happening here in the U.S. I think we still have a good moat set up to a lot of these issues that might befall the rest of the world.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. from a economic standpoint, even like a inflation standpoint, from a lot of macro indicator standpoints, is in a good spot. Yeah. I think it's not. I don't see a lot of the same concern with the U.S. that I would with say like a China. If you look at the data, the Chinese inflation is much more significant than the U.S. I think the bigger concern with the U.S. is the piling debt, right? And how does that debt ever get serviced when the global economy as a whole is struggling?
Global reserve currency, baby.
America. Yeah, that's always the bullish case, right? Is the U.S. kind of petrodollar will remain. I don't know that will we'll see in our lifetime that kind of disappear. Who knows? Maybe we do. I think there are much worse, broader implications if we do, at least for the U.S. economy. But my point overall with it was that as you see more and more people realize the power of crypto, whether it's from a regulatory standpoint and saying, hey, this is growing, we need to put the regulations in place or the tools in place to make sure that this isn't used for money laundering and creates this kind of secondary economy outside of the U.S. petrodollar economy, or if it's countries moving to digital currencies, right? Whatever that is, it's just confirming this kind of wave of sorts that people are seeing in the distance coming of crypto being this next opportunity, or this what's the term I'm looking for? This alternative, right, to fiat currencies. So we love to. Layer1Live is perfect for this.
Where's Barry?
Dwayne, I wish you met Barry. Barry's here most of the time, so hopefully you guys can link up and talk end of world conspiracy here. But anyways, that's it for the Layer 1 Alex Jones podcast. We'll move on here. I guess for my answer there, when you were talking about the presidential response, and I'll be quick about it, is I think it's just generally making its way into Capitol Hill, right? Like I think in 2016 with the elections there, I don't think any of the actual like Hillary wasn't talking crypto. None of these candidates were talking any type of crypto policy. And my boy Andrew Yang, he did drop out. It does suck, but a lot of these candidates are having crypto policies out there now. Like he has it on his website, or did have it on his website. So I think what's happening is like more and more candidates are adding crypto into their policies. I'd have to look at the rest of the Democratic primaries or candidates to like see if they have their crypto policies as well. But I think it's a response to that, right? Like if you have other candidates who are possibly running up against you talking about crypto policies, you need to have either an affirmation of the same policy or some type of different policy that you think can run in accordance with someone else talking about how they're going to control crypto.
Interesting. So you think it's just in response, kind of more of like an election election-based
I think it has
reasoning.
I think it has a lot to do with the election.
That's a good
point,
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. Well, some bad news or kind of more bearish news, if you will, from the crypto space here from myself first and then from Dima. If you haven't heard, IOTA is a complete mess right now. It's a top 100 coin, or at least it was. They were struggling with the mainnet and with the blockchain. And then all of a sudden, a few days ago here, it came out that they had the IOTA team, the IOTA Foundation had halted the blockchain themselves, which is pretty much, to me and to I think a lot of folks in crypto, the biggest no-no possible. It goes to show that the blockchain is not decentralized, and everybody kind of throws in the towel when it comes to chilling or pushing forward your project when you do that, right? ETH has obviously recovered from that. IOTA is definitely not ETH. And it also came out that they are investigating stolen funds. So their Trinity wallet has supposedly been hacked with a variety of user funds stolen, potentially foundation funds. It's hard to say at this point. Like I said, they're investigating. But there's this coordinator has halted the blockchain and said to keep the Trinity wallets closed. We'll link the article in the YouTube link here if you want to take a look. If you're listening via audio, it's just status.iota.org. They're updating it as they go. But as of the 17th, as of this morning, they basically gave 3 steps to go in, check to see if your IOTA in the Trinity wallet was compromised, was stolen. Basically, they've pushed an update. Step 1 is to install the updated version of Trinity. Step 2 is to migrate your tokens to what they're calling safe seeds, right? So they're going to want you to change your passwords, migrate your tokens to, I'm guessing, a new wallet. And then step 3 is reclaiming stolen tokens if necessary. So I don't know if they're going to basically go through and reverse some of these stolen funds and kind of revert to a previous blockchain snapshot. They don't really know if funds are hitting exchanges, but obviously they're working with exchanges to make sure that when that blockchain is no longer halted, these funds don't go to exchanges. So there's still, as you can see, a lot up in the air. We'll keep you guys posted here. This isn't the first time this has happened for a blockchain. If you're newer in the space, right, this isn't necessarily kind of a nail in the coffin, if you will. To me, the biggest thing about this is IOTA halting the blockchain. That is the biggest problem. I think that's going to be the hardest thing for them to come back from. Stolen funds, right? That's a lot easier to come back from. Icon is a blockchain that just a few months ago, like it wasn't working. They couldn't figure out what the issue was. They were trying to get nodes to work together to reset the blockchain. Next thing you know, it pumps like 120% or 80% on the news that they fixed it.
Yeah.
So hard to say if it's a nail in the coffin for IOTA just yet, but definitely not good for that project.
Yeah, it's tough times for IOTA, man, for sure.
So it got paused in response to what?
To the funds potentially being stolen.
So in your perspective, what would you have done differently? Like what's the second route?
Well, I think you have to look at look at and kind of infer what the degree of the issue is, right? So to me, I think IOTA recognized that their Trinity wallet had been compromised.
Okay.
Right? I think they then saw that there is some sort of giant disaster that has happened. Maybe the foundation's been drained. Maybe so many people's IOTA has been stolen, and maybe they saw it all hitting exchanges, and they were like, "Listen, here's the question, right? Do we go in and push this button that halts the blockchain that we haven't told anybody about, or do we let all of the funds hit the exchange, dump the price, and kill the project?"
Yeah.
To which they're, and again, this is all hypothetical. This is all just me, playing guessing games here. To which their response was, well, if A happens, if we don't pause the blockchain, we know that this is done. We're out of money. Everybody's getting laid off. All the users are screwed.
Got it.
So maybe option B, you know what? Let's just pause it, see what happens. It won't kill it immediately. Maybe we can, bring things back. So that's what I'm inferring, based on the fact that we're not getting a ton of info from them, that they've gone and like paused the blockchain here. I mean, this is like, red flag after red flag for me.
They need CZ to come out and say rollback.
Imagine if that actually happened. What would have happened if that actually happened? But I think that, to your point, Mike, like, that is one of the worst things possible, because it's absolutely one of the easiest things to meme on too. And like memes are the oil which actually moves information so quickly these days. I think memes are like so direct in how they transmit information, and that's like the easiest thing to meme ever. You press the off button on your blockchain. Like, that's amazing. And I don't see them coming back, but who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Crazier things have happened for sure. So, if you're out there, if you're holding IOTA, RIP. It's been a tough week for you, but hopefully you get a little icon style pump here.
After that,
Yep.
So moving into some issues in DeFi. So it's great to have a bunch of these new DeFi projects and products, right? But that also comes with certain things where certain loopholes can be found in the technology to really exploit and extract value. Now we had, Kane from Synthetics on the podcast. He did talk about the struggles that they had on their platform with these attackers that would, come onto the platform and extract the value through these loopholes where you basically arbitrage between the delays in price with the oracles that they have. Basically continue to extract value out of that. So we have a new instance here where it was basically Fulcrum. Fulcrum was a lending trading company, DeFi company. You can lend, crypto there. So they saying that the attacker successfully stole like basically $300K worth of ETH in dollars. So $350,000 in ETH was stolen, and they described the process of how exactly he did it on there. It's pretty complex.
Did you follow that?
What?
Did you follow that process?
Yeah, it's pretty complex because the guy who did it is a programmer, so he programmed this whole thing to basically execute. But it was a little bit tough to really follow.
Basically, so DYDX, the platform that is kind of a part of this whole setup, offers these flash loans essentially, and he had a significant amount of funds to be able to do this. To your point, it was done, looks like algorithmically, because he's taking advantage of the time difference that occurs on these DeFi platforms. Basically took a flash loan of 10,000 ETH, put 50% on Compound and 50% on bZx, which is a protocol that this Fulcrum that you're talking about uses. He then borrowed 112 wrapped BTC, which is just the basically ERC20 token of BTC. He borrowed that from Compound, then went and shorted this wrapped BTC on bZw. So then used, I guess, the other half of the BTC to dump, right? So he made money on the short after using some of that wrapped BTC on Uniswap to dump it.
Yeah.
And then immediately paid back the 10,000 ETH in the flash loan to DYDX. So, essentially the original contract of 1 million ETH in compound had 650K in debt of wrapped BTC. So he made about 350K in profit of that difference. So broadly, he basically took out a loan, right? A flash loan, which then he used to I guess purchase a bunch of this wrapped BTC, which then he crashed the market with while he was short elsewhere to then profit, while then immediatally paying back that flash.
And this was done like within like
how many seconds did this take?
Yeah.
It would have been, it was what, like a 10-second or 5-second delay that Synthetics was having issues with.
Yeah.
So it was I would say probably less than 10 seconds is fair to say. Like Deem said, this is pretty complex, in the way that he or she did it. The interesting thing to me is that you have a lot of people who saw this happen, who I think are in the DeFi space or in the ETH space, and they're like, yeah, it's some of the risks.
I love it.
What are you gonna do?
Well,
he won.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, actually, so here there's some like kind of merit to it. I talked to Kane about it on the podcast. But like the thing is, like when you have these loops, right, in DeFi projects, when you have these things, yeah, I mean, it is illegal by traditional finance to manipulate and do those things, right? But in crypto, we see it in a different way where it's a bounty for people to do this, right? It's a reward that is available there and you can take and based on how the product is structured, it is basically a bounty for you to make money and also point out that this is an issue in industry, and then eventually DeFi is going to grow out of it, right? And I've talked to Kane about specifically how different centralized finance and DeFi is in terms of in centralized finance. You're like, hey, this guy who is a scammer, don't ever open an account with me or any other brokers or any other financial firm. So you get put on a blacklist, and then you basically get rid of this person. But here in DeFi, you can't really identify that person. You just create new different wallets and so on, right? And then continue to do this. So, so in DeFi, you have to go through some pains to really to start making changes and closing up these loopholes, and eventually the evolution of the market will make a better product of itself, right? So it's part of the evolution of DeFi, I believe. And you see how like they're they're going to be using Chainlink now, and this is Synthetics was talking about that as well. There's some huge problems with the Uniswap.
I would generally agree with you, Dima, that it's viewed in a poor light, obviously in traditional markets and things like that, but like in crypto, this is very like, hey, this is run of the mill. This isn't a hack. This is just an exploit, right? It's an exploit of logic. It's not necessarily a hack. But I liked your bounty point. Your bounty point was phenomenal. But once you start talking about a certain amount of users' funds that are at risk, because obviously, as you said, DeFi is going to evolve, and that bounty makes sense when the bounty's so small. But when it becomes that users have funds that they believe are safe within DAI, and then it somehow gets exploited, and that's a bounty, it's like, all right, well, you start to mix some factors in as more common users get into this and expect that their funds are safe.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's a good point, right? It's not like this was a hack, something like this. It was that exploit. So
I don't know what, the headline said that the funds were stolen. Like they were really stolen,
They were kind of created, if
you
will. They were created and exploited, I guess is the way to put it. But the bigger concern for me, I mean, congrats to the guy that was able to make $350,000 in a matter of seconds.
Thank you.
You're brilliant. The bigger concern to me is that it feels in a broader context that DeFi is growing faster than it can handle, right? I mean, ETH is great because you have so many different developers working on so many different things. And while there are audits happening, and while, security exists and kind of hopefully these structures are in place to make sure that this innovation can grow in a structured and safe way. This is a similar to like ICOs in a way. It tells me that like, hey, this is getting too crazy too fast, right? I don't know how you slow it down or how you kind of put the things in place with the various projects who are running DeFi, but to me, it's just a broad kind of general red flag that like, hey, we're putting the cart in front of the horse here a little bit.
But that's the point that Kane was trying to make, as he was talking about, is that in the way DeFi things go, and I don't want to get into too much in it because like you guys should really go to listen to Synthetics episode with Kane. But you know,
I was on it, but yeah, I'm joking. I was physically there, but
but he talked about how in DeFi you first lay the ground, and let the products start working, and then people start using, and then you start adapting to the market as these things come through, because you can start designing the perfect system and try to roll that out, but it's not going to be perfect. You think it's perfect, but it's not going to be perfect until you actually test it with the market, with the users that are as smart as this guy who extracted this loophole, right? So
I get that. It's like the move fast and break things model, right?
Yeah,
kind of.
But and that's like a very standard kind of like tech startup bleeding edge.
But there's funds involved in this.
There's funds involved in. To me, crypto is like very unforgiving, right? Crypto is still very much, and especially DeFi, inherently a retail movement.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there might be some funds that have some things locked up there, right? But crypto is so trust based that just as we saw with ICOs, just as we saw with IEOs, and hopefully not the case with DeFi, if you get burned enough, that trust is gone. And it becomes very difficult to bring that kind of core usership back after all of those things have happened. So yeah, it's an exploit, right? Maybe him dumping the BTC price only liquidated so many people on their trades, part of the risk there. But again, if this is a red flag for future things to come and future issues to happen with DeFi, it's that's my concern, right? I hope we don't get there.
I don't think we touched on it. We might have, again, like Deem is saying, go back, because I was completely zoned out apparently. But no, I'm joking. But I think what you'll see, and there was a term that was thrown around in the article that you're talking about with this exploit, is that people are kind of moving to this thing called DeFi insurance. So I think what you'll have is like, as these DeFi platforms start to evolve, it would make sense to also kind of allocate funds to people within the platform, to like some type of insurance fund. So if this stuff like this does happen, no users are affected, and you can decentralize that, right? Like you can throw in, 0.0001% of each fee goes to this kind of contract that is there, so that if something does happen like this, maybe it gets dispersed to the users in that sense. Like it's just like kind of an insurance fund. But there's obviously, then you have to worry about the security of that actual contract. So you get into
but see, if you do that, then you're increasing the bounty for the hackers, because that now you got this extra money they're laying, that they can acquire.
But again, it's not a hack. It's an exploit of a logic of the logic around the trading that's happening. It's not like a hack of a wallet.
Yeah, but the problem here is that these bounty hunters, when they do these type of trades, they get into positions where the company becomes insolvent to pay out, right? So you have a trader that builds out such a huge position that the company can't pay out on the profits for that position, because it's becomes insolvent. That's what Kane was explaining in that situation what they had with that trader. So that insurance fund would be the bounty that the traders could acquire.
So
it would be
again,
the end goal.
Yeah, right. So like the exploit is just the catalyst, right?
Yeah.
It's the context of the size of the positions around the exploit that is almost more of the issue and almost more of the reason for the insurance fund. And that was going to be my point, right? Was like, let's take this for example, this DYDX / Fulcrum kind of issue here, right? If this exploit caused so many users to get liquidated in the amount of $350,000, and there was some insurance fund that then repaid them because this was considered an exploit by some DAO or foundation or, you know, whatever kind of new concepts is gonna exist to say, hey, these were actually bad actors, this does qualify as an exploit. If I'm the exploiter, I'm also setting myself up so that I'm one of the people who then gets repaid for this issue.
Love it.
Right. So you know, it's like, it's okay, tough. Well, I'm the one who's causing the insurance fund to get paid out, but I'm also setting myself up in a way so that I get paid out by the insurance fund.
That's what they were saying about bZx DAO, right? Like when bZx DAO dissolved, it was like, okay, you could set up a position, you could make all of this happen by buying DGD and then voting for this and then getting paid out. It's like, this is just, there's so many ways to game it. I do like your point though, Dima, and Mike, that was a good point too, but as I was kind of, when you said that made sense, right? Like as you have this insurance fund, if it gets larger and larger, it almost becomes like a target. It's like this it's this huge carrot for me to now go in and find an exploit. So that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. Hey, we are an hour. We're an hour and 20 minutes in, fellas, and we have a ton of stories left. So we're gonna have to keep each discussion to a certain minimum. We don't want to like go over 2 hours, guys, unless you guys do comment and you're like just go over. But for the most part, we want to stay under 2 hours. So we'll fly through the rest of this. We have about 40 minutes.
Deem, you hit BTC here. I'll hit ETH. And then Q, if you want to hit EOS after Ripple, we'll fly through.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So the Bitcoin stuff is quite short. Basically have the minor news here. What was it? Kanas, right? Kanas shares valued $8 after surging 80%.
I think that's Canaan.
Canaan's.
I think that's Canaan.
I think there's a little bit of a
more ESL.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so basically they're talking about how this big US miner that went to trade on the stock exchange is up 80%. But you got to keep in mind that they're still down since the IPO. They basically plunged 40% since the IPO in November 2019. So, and they IPO'd, let me see, what was the price they IPO'd? Right now it's trading at about $8.
Originally it was 13.
Yeah, $13. Yeah. So, I mean, there's some relief there. And obviously, something like this where, Bitcoin miner is definitely going to be super volatile, especially after the IPO and where the market, is and how volatile the market is right now. But it's definitely a competitor of Bitstamp, and they're getting market share of that. So it's good to have more miners. They can diversify. Like we have the Asian one,
Bitmain,
Bitmain,
Bitmain.
We have the one in Asia, and then we have one US one. That's so just quick news in terms of the stock price that just went up. I mean, that makes sense. Bitcoin went up.
Right.
So,
yeah, this seems to me like these crypto IPOs and these crypto stocks are gonna slowly or quickly move into what we've seen with weed stocks.
Yeah.
Right. Where you see these massive moves up, you see these crazy valuations, big dumps, but big moves up. And Canaan here is kind of the first one, starting at $13. Looks like it dropped all the way down to 525. And then now, like you said, is up to about $8. So it's kind of them in the US versus Bitmain, who they've had their issues, but yeah, it is interesting as crypto moves to public markets.
Yeah, what's going to happen with halving?
Right. So, on that note here, moving into ETH a little bit, ETH has been absolutely crushing, not just in price, but in volumes, in overall news. On the public markets front, believe it or not, the Grayscale Ethereum Investment Trust has seen people buying ETH at an insane 287% valuation. So, just as a kind of recap on this, just like Grayscale has its Bitcoin investment trust, they also have one for ETH. Essentially, the way ETH works is I think it's about 10% of one Ethereum is kind of each share of this trust. So people in the Ethereum trust are paying $83.50 for underlying assets that are only worth $21.53, right? So again, roughly about 10%, 8% of one total ETH equals one share in the ETH investment trust. So that's pretty, recent growth in this premium. Grayscale's kind of pitch in their response to people saying, hey, you guys are just like a crazy Ponzi scheme taking advantage of institutional investors not having great access to crypto, is that, hey, well, as demand continues to increase and as more people come and invest in it, the premium should decrease over time. I think the original premium, whenever they launched it back in spring of 2019, people were paying like $6,000 per ETH. That's essentially. So it was even higher than it is now. But like I said, we've seen that kind of boost up. So it's ETH is jumping on that front. Ethereum futures have seen their highest volume since June 2019. I know we were talking before the podcast. ETH options are exploding. Deribit just listed ETH options, I believe. And for anybody on the trading side, we've got Dimitri's desk tomorrow. I'm sure you'll be talking that at 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 p.m. tomorrow. So ETH is pushing heavy here. Final piece of ETH news is that now Coinbase is giving DAI some love, basically via Coinbase Commerce.
That's crazy.
You can now exchange DAI with millions of different merchants. We talked about this, I think it was last Layer 1, about how Coinbase Commerce has done a really good job of onboarding merchants. Their growth year over year is pretty significant, and now they're adding DAI to their platform. So it's not all bad news for DeFi.
Big boost. We talked about this pre-episode, but if you had told me like a year ago that merchants like Gap would be like accepting DAI, where I could like stake my ETH and like go out and buy shit with DAI just in the mall, it's like, this is crazy. But I'm not certain how like the point of sale mechanism like works with Coinbase Commerce, but they were saying that like they want merchants to stake DAI, like as like a savings rate. Like they have like a 7% savings rate. But again, like I was under the impression that the merchants actually never see the DAI, right? Like it's somehow like Coinbase converts that. Yeah. So it was interesting within the article, or maybe I read another article. It was saying that like, oh no, we want merchants to actually, use the savings mechanism and hold the DAI, which doesn't compute with me as to where we are in crypto adoption.
Yeah, I think that was more from Maker, right? I think Maker's response to this was like, oh, hey, like Coinbase, let's go one step further. How can we help expose people to this DAI savings rate or this DSR? But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like Coinbase Commerce, it's a plugin essentially, right? I mean, merchants are never going to like have some wallet where they have access to DAI or to be able to stake it in some form. I believe Coinbase Commerce is just, again, that plugin that's going to allow users to spend DAI, which then will be converted to USD, so that Gap or whomever are one of the 800,000 different stores or 3 million different shops to now accept DAI.
So wait, is it going to be like in the form of like card or like phone? Like how the hell?
So it's Coinbase Commerce just plugs in with various merchants, right?
Oh, so it's online sales? Or?
Yeah. It's definitely online.
Brick and mortar.
I'm not sure if you know. Everybody shops online.
Yeah, this internet. Oh man.
I will tell you one thing. My family's over here asking how they can get more Ethereum. So
Ethereum.
So I think we've moved on from, or at least they have, right? They've been in crypto probably 3 years maybe. So that's kind of crazy. But I feel like the more initiated they get into the process, they're not talking about Bitcoin anymore. They want to hear about this Ethereum. So maybe you have a point that like Ethereum obviously is, I mean, it's being bought at a 280% premium. Like it's definitely got some legs, man. I think Ethereum is going to be one to look out for.
Yeah, no doubt. What about Ripple? Should we
Ripple?
Be looking out for Ripple?
Yeah. So Ripple triple. So news came out basically, how we talked about Ripple and saying that MoneyGram basically is using Ripple infrastructure to these instant payments for their clients. Boom, That's not true. They cannot. MoneyGram reveals real-time remittance tech based on Visa, not Ripple.
Oof.
Shocker. So, but if you read the article, it actually makes sense, because so they beta technology basically for instant payments and settlements for their clients that does not interact or is not based on Ripple tech, but the back end in terms of how MoneyGram deals in terms of their institutional side with the banking systems, that's just in the background to, let's say, settle like certain international payments between countries, right? So they have MoneyGram has many different jurisdictions, different countries, which they're exposed to the FX in the currency of that country. So they're using Ripple as that FX gateway in terms of making sure that they have enough funds in that currencies value, whatever, in that country. So it's done on the interbanking scale, not for clients. Clients really just deal with like the Visa, instant payments, but Ripple is used on the back end for their more macro system. So that was just cleared up. I think there was a lot of confusion there where people were thinking that Ripple is something that's stimulating that.
It's funny how that starts. It's like it starts as Ripple and MoneyGram. I don't remember if Ripple bought MoneyGram or invested in them or what it was. MoneyGram invested in Ripple, what it was, and then I think it probably by the end of the telephone game, people assumed that like they were buying Ripple because MoneyGram was now using Ripple to value like the XRP token, right? Instead of fiat currency. So a little clarification there. Ripple saw some other craziness as well.
Oh my God,
BitMEX.
yes.
I'm sure you'll talk about it tomorrow, but
I talked about it in the last episode on Friday already. Yeah.
Good Lord. It was like a 56% drop on
just
BitMEX.
A flash.
Yeah, like a flash crash.
Introducing Ripple on BitMEX. They just introduced this product on BitMEX, and it was like a couple days after they saw this 1 minute spike basically that went down. It went from like 30 cents to like 14 cents. And on BitMEX, everybody's leveraged, so it caused a bunch of liquidations. People were raging out because they were saying that their stops did not work. Arthur, you did this, blah blah blah, all this stuff. There was a lot of rage against BitMEX on this, but really BitMEX did investigation, and this is something I talked about on the desk as well. Like that the system actually functioned the way it should. The matching engine worked. It was basically the traders in the system and the liquidity providers and the bots that were there trading XRP that caused this flash. But the matching engine itself, in terms of inner workings and stop losses and so on, were working. It was just it was a run on the liquidity there that was available in the beginning when the XRP got introduced.
So it was a liquidity issue.
Yeah.
All right.
So why did the stops not get hit?
So the stops. Okay. So the stops that people had in place, they did hit, but because of how quickly that dropped, basically you have to understand that the stop loss, once it's triggered, it becomes a market order and it's filled at the best available price at a time. So if the price goes from 30 cents and the next price that you see on your screen is 14 cents, then your stop is getting executed at 14 cents. Well, to be honest, you're getting liquidated. You're actually getting liquidated because your liquidation, right? But that's how the stop loss works. And I saw a lot of, this is a typical question in FX as well. When you have these gaps, your stops do not guarantee price. If it's a regular stop loss, it guarantees execution because, what if the price gaps through your stop? And you don't get that price, then you're still in the trade, right? You're still causing more losses. So stop is designed to get you out as quickly as possible out of your
quick enough.
Yeah, and then so BitMEX came out and said, everything was fine, and the people were expecting the insurance fund to pay, for the losses that caused on this, but they explained again that the insurance fund was not designed for that, and it's absolutely true. The insurance fund is designed in a case where what happened with FXCM when I was working there, where you have such a crazy move where people get liquidated and they have negative balance.
Right.
Right. So if they have a negative balance, you're not going to go after people to
Not enough profit to pay out.
Yeah, exactly. Not enough. Yeah, not enough profit to pay out.
Got it.
So
in this case, there was plenty to pay out.
Yeah,
and it was just all from people who got super wrecked.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So therefore, insurance fund is not applicable in this situation. It's just a market activity. But,
Got it. R.I.P. Ripple.
R.I.P.
Next traders.
All right, so this is what we got. We got EOS next. I know, and I'm as we were talking, I was kind of like thinking about how we could make this more interactive and let people know like when things are coming up. So I think we can. If you guys have any recommendations on like how we can go through this, because I know some of you don't want to wait till the end of the episode to hear about EOS or something like that. I think what we can do is like maybe make it apparent. I don't know if you guys have seen like Pardon the Interruption on like ESPN. Have you seen that, Mike? I know this is a sports reference, so everyone's gonna log off now. But how they kind of like have in increments and kind of show like what's coming up next. I think we can do something like that for you guys in the future, where we kind of have maybe like the logos of the different chains possibly. So that lets you know, hey, and maybe have like a rundown. Maybe we have like 5 or 7 minutes on each chain. Boom, boom, boom. So we're on EOS now, guys. I know we do have a lot of EOS followers out there. From the Anyways, we have a lot of EOS followers. So I'm gonna hit the Wax news first. So we had 2 pieces of news. One of them being the Wax partnership that was kind of teased, as well as this big piece of news, which is that the voice beta is launched. But I'll touch on the Wax partnership here. Basically, the Wax team kind of did like a little Justin Sunning. And interesting that Justin Sun is now associated with like guerrilla marketing and just like really good marketing. But so basically just from their Twitter, they showed a link as well as a picture once you got to this link's destination of a new partnership that was going to be linked up with Wax. And it was just this black and white, actually just like kind of an image with nothing on it. All you saw was the shadow essentially of Mickey Mouse. And they're like, this is the hint for our new partner.
I thought it was Dead Mouse.
Yeah. Well, no, it ended up, they haven't really officially even announced it yet. But obviously it was like in the shape of Mickey Mouse. Then they released a couple other shadow images over the next, preceding hours. So basically what's actually going to happen here is Wax is going to partner with Topps, which is associated. It's like a collectible company, like trading cards with Disney. So they haven't officially come out with the actual news. I believe William Quigley, which is I'm not sure if he's the CEO. Let's see here. Co-founder essentially of Wax. He was formerly at Disney. So that's kind of where this partnership comes from. But Wax is gonna eventually partner with Topps here to offer, I'm sure, some type of crypto or token collectible of Topps merchandise. That's big for Wax. That's huge for EOS, obviously, because there are theories. Is this going to even come back to the EOS token price? But one can make the argument that a partnership within the EOS ecosystem as a whole will look good for EOS in general. So, that was the first piece of news. I don't know if you guys want to, talk on that at all, but Wax is going to partner with Topps, which is associated with Disney.
Topps is, I don't know how much Topps still exists. I just remember growing up, Topps, like baseball cards and whatnot. Mm-hmm. At that point, Topps was not super huge anymore. But it had done a good job of kind of moving into the store of value a little bit, where it's like, oh, I have this, Babe Ruth card, or I have this Michael Jordan Topps card or something, right? And it was, potentially worth all this money if you sold it on eBay. So it makes sense to me, right? It makes sense that if you're looking at NFTs in some form, partner with somebody who has done a decent job of making a physical store of value with various trading cards.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's Demi. You have anything?
No. You guys pretty much said everything. That's
the more exciting piece of news on this was Voice, because I saw a great tweet from Pete. That came out. Pete's the guy from Liquid Apps who we just had on the podcast. Great podcast there.
Yep.
Check it out. I think his Twitter handle is BitgensteinX. But yeah, looks like the beta looks pretty nice.
Yeah, the beta came out. It was released on Valentine's Day. We have had several members of the community, obviously, posting about it. I haven't been invited yet, unfortunately. I don't think. I think I actually signed up under another email. But anyways, a bunch of people in the community got access to the voice beta. Wittgenstein, PK, he did have access, and he ended up screen recording from the sign up process, the KYC, the actual in-app features, the UX, and things like that. And it does look clean. I think the word from the community is that it kind of has like a medium mixed with a little bit of Instagram feel. Obviously, voice is launching on, and they're a ton of people are kind of putting their own thoughts on what they believe voice should be. But I think voice coming from Block One is just coming out as like having authentic users. I think that's like generally their main point. We're going to have a social media platform that is completely authentic as it relates to the users. There were rules, which I'll drop in the link now, that came out that was kind of like led to a fuss within the community. Because again, people want to put their own opinions on what they think voice should be. Voice to them probably seemed like this decentralized social media where we could do anything we want, right? Like that's just, in general, that's kind of like the cyberpunk mindset. So voice is definitely not like something that a cyberpunk would use. Like if we like go back to 2000s, even like, early 2010s, but kind of as we've seen the evolution of centralization and decentralization over the last 2 years, voice is kind of a good example of that, right? Like they eventually want to create this product that can be decentralized, but they're not starting there. They're starting on a private blockchain. They're essentially not having it on EOS at all, as far as the public mainnet goes. And they have these legal grounds, which I'll put in here now, and we can go through them, but they're not very decentralized. And I'll put a little bit out there right now. So we have the ground rules for voice. No infringements, no hate, abuse, or discrimination, no harassment, threats, or intimidation, no invasions of privacy of defamation, no pornography or sexual content, Dima, no exploitation of minors, no violence or gore, no deception, no illegal activity, no spam. So obviously,
I think that reference to Dima would be considered like violent or a hate crime. Or
it's defamation.
You're gone. Defamation.
Yeah. That's. I mean, if you don't want those rules, man, just use like 4chan. It's like voice is not looking to be like the prettier version of 4chan or like Reddit. Like those like platforms that have like crazy stuff that you can do anything on. Right.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, EOS, Tron's another good example. Right. These are not like. If you don't realize this yet, you should now, especially, right? These are not beacons of decentralization within the crypto community, right? I mean, they are more centralized than many other platforms, but I don't think that necessarily means that they're going to lose. Right? If it's just full decentralization or nothing, it's really hard, even with Bitcoin or ETH, to find that today, and that's a much longer discussion. But my overall point is that your Tron, your EOS, they are really going towards mainstream adoption, usage, activity on the blockchain, right? That's where they see the ability to show value to potential future users, to token holders, to whatever it is. Whereas on the other side, you have your Decreds, you have your Tezos, right? You have those who are kind of taking a different model and saying, hey, no, we are fully decentralized, right? Our governance is completely decentralized, or the most decentralized, and this is the value we bring. We're maybe less concerned about bringing some sort of application to mainstream users, but this is the route that we're taking. So yeah, I would agree with both of you, right? It makes sense to me that voice would have these constraints, and at the end of the day, to me, it's going to come down to whether or not they're able to go out there and bring some sort of more mainstream adoption to the this new social network, and thus potentially tie in those new users to EOS or to the voice token or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, so it's not going to be just like crypto focused, like, so it doesn't feed off users only that are the ones that are in crypto.
Right.
That's going to be the key thing for it.
Yeah, obviously there are a lot of things that go along with this voice launch, man. Like it runs almost not even like in parallel, but up against a lot of the principles that, decentralization and a lot of other principles that crypto is founded on, right? Like you have to KYC. So
Right.
if you have an authentic user, now you have an authentic experience, right? Whoever I'm talking to here, it's not some troll bot or some spam Russian bot or anything like that. But at the same time, now everything I'm saying, if a government employee has access to voice, now they can see my entire history of anything I post ever. So it's like that is so up against traditional crypto, and I hate to even use the word traditional crypto together, but like in the past, like those are principles that cryptocurrency was founded on, right? Not
Right.
being censored, no KYC, like just being a self-sovereign individual without the overall kind of watchfulness of the government eye, and that's not voice at all.
Yeah.
And the last one I'll make on this voice concept here, they are doing KYC right now, so you can go to voice.com and you wait in line with the rest of us. Mainly, it's only U.S. users right now, which is funny because in the beginning they said that U.S. users were going to be completely like last, like we were. Yeah, when voice first came out, U.S. users were not going to be allowed on the platform first,
Right.
which was funny because they made the actual announcement in D.C. But
They didn't get booed.
no, because I think a lot of people are even though that it was in D.C., I think you had a lot of people all around the country kind of come to that. But the last point, man, I do think that I think people assume that crypto projects, and this is where I wish people would I'm going to get crucified for this. But I think what makes fanatics and what makes zealots so well is like, or so good for platforms and for everything that has these types of people is that like they're give me a second to think about the word that I want to use because I don't want to be crucified.
Yeah.
They're
I know where you're
unyielding.
going.
They're unyielding,
Yeah.
right? Like they don't yield with the wind, right? Like they're very staunch in their principles. So I think voice launching now is not going to be what voice is going to look like in the future. Maybe they go down this line. Maybe it ends up on public testnet or mainnet, all of these things, but it isn't going to be in 2 years what it is now. But people don't they're like, it's my principles. You know what I'm saying? Like, I cannot do this. It's like, just let the company gain mass adoption by doing all these things that you need to do to gain mass adoption, and then we'll get there. Instead of like doing a full cannonball into decentralization and just being dead on arrival. I know this is a spiel and I'll get off of it, but I like what Block One's doing, man. It's not because I'm holding an EOS bag or anything like that. I think they're going about it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, if you think of voice as kind of a PR movement for EOS in a lot of ways, I mean, obviously, every new user that voice brings in does not there in a direct way affect EOS, but obviously, voice as kind of that net for EOS IO, for the EOS community, that could do a lot for EOS, right? So, if you assume it is kind of that larger PR piece or that larger net for adoption, then I think there's good things there. It will be very interesting to see how much voice adoption comes from within the crypto community versus from outside of it. I think they're going to have some crypto community adoption first, and they'll probably get that from the EOS community. But if they don't get that, that's where my concern comes in. But congrats to EOS, congrats to your EOS bags, Q, even though they've jumped down here a little bit. I know we got a big pump on that voice news, so it's looking like it's definitely going to be a cool thing. Some news on the Binance front here. I'll hit the first one, Deem. Binance continues to grow. I think last Layer1Live, we talked about how they had brought on a former TradingView COO to essentially help them in their emerging markets, which is basically every smaller market that they've gone and launched some sort of crypto fiat on-ramp. This is a continuing narrative for Binance, and one that we talked about on last week's Layer1Live about how as Binance kind of looks to this next retail wave, they are not necessarily looking at stealing users from Coinbase. I think they are more looking for those users in smaller countries that have yet to have any sort of fiat on-ramp and dominating those smaller regions versus trying to take market share from Coinbase in, say, the US or North America. So as they continue that, long story short, they have hired an ex-Uber product lead as their vice president of global expansion. So you can see them putting together the various pieces, putting together the right people, so that these fiat on-ramps can continue to grow, so that their global presence can continue to grow. I mean, CZ has always been one who has said, we will move into the US heavy when we feel it's appropriate. And until then, you know, we want to dominate globally. So, you know, another bullish sign for Binance as a company as a whole, as they continue to grow by leaps and bounds, it seems.
Yeah. And also in that piece, you talked about how, like, you know, you mentioned the local on ramps for the currencies is a big thing, but that guy that they hired, he's specifically going to focus on local regulations as well, meaning that, you know, how Binance is going to comply with all the laws, because, you know, Uber is a global company and they dealt with it. So
right,
he's going to help them in that sense on a very local level. But in other news from Binance that are not so good, so right before Valentine's Day, Binance had this slight issue where basically they had issues with order books on their platform, and some people were not able to get out of their positions during the time when Bitcoin was at 10.5K, which is a huge resistance level. So the issue was identified fairly quickly, and CZ came out on Twitter saying, hey, don't worry, this is just an issue with some order book display, you know, funds are safe, that's it, you know, like it's going to be fixed shortly. But he didn't realize that, you know, since you can't get out of a position, some traders were stuck in a position while BTC was going down. You know, basically they're in a long position, BTC was going down because they're getting rejected from resistance. And he got basically crucified on Twitter for saying that funds are safe, because when I'm in a position, I'm losing money and I can't get out of the trade. You know, and it's huge because, you know, I've talked to you about, you know, before we started the podcast, is that back in the days when I was in Forex, my company, there would be an issue where, you know, let's say trading kind of stopped. There's a technical issue, right? We would have crazy like inbound calls, and everybody's just like, you know, calling like, hey, what's going on? Like, you know, I have open positions, man. Like, how are we going to manage this? You know, so, and actually we liked it what they called, or because then we could be like, hey, what are you trying to do? Like, all right, are we marking you close here? Like, so I take notes, you know, like where we, you know, as the system is going through fixing, you know, we'll take notes. All right, if you wanted to get out here, then we'll just compensate you the difference. And that's the whole point, is that, you know, in crypto here, with the issue with Binance and some of these other exchanges that are struggling when the volatility picks up or some technical issues come up, I feel like responses have not been to the extent that people were hoping for, right? You know, like in traditional finance, like I mentioned, the Forex broker, you know, we would do certain things to compensate for these tech issues, because, you know, let's say if you're in a position you want to get out, you couldn't. Therefore, that loss you accumulated, you know, because of that issue. So, but it looks like, you know,
CZ just kind of shrugged it off in a lot of. I mean,
Are you surprised?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised, which I guess was going to be my point. But exchange competition is going to really heat up.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
It seems what's going to happen. Binance has moved into futures. They are still, when calculating all of their volume, the largest in the game. But to me, it's not a chink in the armor for Binance, but I could see this playing out in a way where finally Binance has expanded so much, we start to see a Rome effect. Right, where little things start to go wrong, right, and all this expansion has not necessarily hurt them, but will kind of slow them down. So little things like order book delays, where it's, you know, hey, okay, it's fixed, yeah, funds are for Seifu, but how many users, how many hundreds or thousands of users got wrecked, and now we're going to move to Bybit, or now we're going to move to BitMEX.
There weren't those alternatives, like on the UX level, on everything type of level. There weren't the alternatives in that altcoin trading boom where Binance saw its run up.
Right. And you know, maybe there are enough users now where this isn't the case, but if you look back on previous, you know, exchange history, it's these little cracks that will end up killing exchanges. right? I mean, bZx is probably the best example. When Coinbase came out, right, they were obviously the big dog, and then bZx came out and they started listing all these altcoins. And it was basically like the new crypto casino because these alts were going crazy. Retail came in waves, and bZx, their servers legit could not handle all of the new traders,
inbound,
right? All the new inbound traders. So they were shutting off new registrants. And at that time, it was like, well, it's no big deal. We're tapped out. We're making so
Binance
much.
was doing that too. Remember? They were shutting off the new registrations.
Not yet at this point. But when bZx did this, it was at a time where they were dominating, right? They were growing so fast. It didn't matter. They were making money head over heels. And then a Binance came out, and some of these other exchanges came out, right? And they were basically like, hey, doors are open. You want to trade the same altcoins? You want to trade more altcoins? Come to us. Right. And while they weren't as good as Binance wasn't as good as bZx at that time, or they weren't moving as much volume as bZx at that time, it was that slight opportunity that allowed new users or current users to go, hey, bZx is fucking up. I can't log in. Their servers are overloaded. Well, let me check out this Binance. Right. And if you start to have those little kind of cracks or deviations or chinks in the armor, it opens up the ability for some of these new exchanges to at least grab a user and say, hey, let me show you why FTX is better. Let me show you why Huobi's better.
Here's why it's not going to happen here. And another thing is that if it does happen, having a specific department that's dedicated to auditing certain issues with trading is huge. Gives the customers more opportunity to interact with the exchange and have certain things reviewed in case there's an issue. That's something that the exchanges are not prepared for yet. And that's very costly. Again, going back to Forex, we had this specific department that was specifically focusing on any type of issues and doing audits on trading to make sure the execution is there, because the competition effect is huge, right? So until that day, we'll have to wait to see when the exchanges are going to start really caring, going the extra mile for their customers, So
yeah, Ernest of Gaia, he's in the chat here. He said, I hate Coinbase too, but it's easy. It works better than a bank. Just wish there was a Coinbase debit card. And while you guys were having that conversation, I was like, wait, there is a Coinbase debit card. So let me look.
It's not in the US.
There was.
Yeah.
It was called Shift.
I look at that link that I just posted in the comments. There's literally a Coinbase card.
Oh yeah.
It's not in the US though. Yeah.
I know there used to be a. Oh, that's cool. I haven't seen this Coinbase card yet.
Yeah, no, it's been a while.
It's a debit card, right?
Yeah, debit card lets you spend what's in your Coinbase balance. So,
they used to have this. They called it Shift. And it was kind of fun. I remember I had it, and I remember using it because.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember I'd go to the grocery store and I would use it and spend some Bitcoin, and then when I would check the app, it was always exciting because it was wait, has Bitcoin gone up?
Yeah.
Use less Bitcoin to buy groceries, or in some cases it will have dumped, and I'm like, damn, I really spent a lot of Bitcoin there. But
yeah, I'm looking now and seeing. I'm on the FAQ section. I'll see if it's usable in the US. But okay, available. Yeah, hold on.
It says worldwide. You do use it like a debit card. Obviously, you're not able to, at least yet, use a physical card to take out credit on.
Yeah, it's Europe. Yeah, it's
crypto. It's Europe. Okay.
So Zappo was the first one who actually did it. I believe they acquired Zappo, Coinbase. And they tried to do it first and did it around the world, and they couldn't do it in US because of regulatory stuff. And I guess the same thing for you, Coinbase. We can't have nice things.
You can't have nice things over here, except voice apparently. But anyways, at least we're not getting hung up for weeds over here. So at least that's not happening. But
hung up, huh?
Hey, got it. Okay,
yes,
all right.
Who's in ESL now?
Final story.
Yeah,
here.
Stellar. We're at 117. Let's go on. Let's stay under 120. Let's go.
Yeah, what we you want me to? I can take the Stellar.
Oh yeah, go for it.
In a ongoing kind of adoption within Germany for crypto, Stellar has made the news here because a German bank is going to be offering tokenized securities that will be based on Stellar. So last Layer1Live, when it was just me and Dimitri, we talked about how Germany had just given the AOK for banks. I think it was 40 German banks to offer crypto custody, which was that, obviously going to be a massive, kind of bullish move for specifically crypto, right? Crypto assets within Germany. This one obviously doesn't have to do with crypto assets. This has to do with tokenized securities. I think we talked a little bit about that last episode too, about how we haven't really seen any sort of growth within STOs or tokenized securities, whatever you want to call them. But now we will see that. So it's based in Munich. It's Bank von der Heid, essentially announced.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's decent.
No, that was good.
They basically partnered with blockchain financial services provider Bitbond to help integrate tokenization into its established securitization platform. I think that the last part of that sentence is the most key because it's something that's already been established, right? This is not T0 or somebody within the STO space, a polymath trying to tokenize securities. This is somebody who exists within the securities realm already, who is moving towards the tokenization of securities. I don't know that we really saw any sort of big pump for Stellar on this news, but Stellar has not had a lot of good news over the last few months, so it's kind of a breath of life from that.
I was saying that before the podcast, how interesting is that, how like the founder of XRP basically left to create Stella because XRP was getting into that banking stuff that he didn't like. And now Stella is getting into the banking stuff, which is like kind of ironic. But yeah, the key takeaway there is basically just, they're going to use that technology for better settlement system for the shares that the products that they offer already on the platform already. So because right now there's that in traditional finance, you need that, like a couple days or so for the actual transfers and settlements to happen, which is, in 21st century, bro, nobody's trying to wait, so.
Right. Yeah.
It's a back end stuff.
Good news for Stellar. I mean, it is fast. If you've used Stellar before, it is definitely fast. So cool news there. But yeah, that is pretty much what we got on this Layer1Live. Hopefully not too much FUD for you guys. Try to keep it positive and negative. If you're looking for trading news or kind of price action, obviously hit Dimitri's desk. And then what do we have again this week for interviews, Q?
We've got Decentraland. We've got Pool Together. We're dropping the Crypto Kaiju sometime this week too. We're trying to figure out when to best drop that Crypto Kaiju episode, which if you guys don't know, Crypto Kaiju is the one that produces those vinyl crypto kitties, as well as like a lot of other crypto collectibles that have NFTs attached to them. So that's a pretty cool interview. We had a great time talking about his favorite Premier League team, which escapes my mind because they're in like below the championship series. But anyways, fun conversation there to see what they're doing with the Kings. But yeah, man, we're just about at 2 hours. So this was a great episode. We appreciate you guys, sticking around till the end or just hopping in and leaving comments. We're trying to really use Layer1Live to connect with you guys a lot more than we can on the episodes. So if you guys could, leave comments, figure out how we can do this better. I think we can, interact with you guys a little bit more, or try to change up the concept and constantly evolve, man. That's what it's about. So we appreciate that, man. Dima, you got anything before we go out?
No, man. Catch me tomorrow at 5 p.m. We're going to hit the markets hard.
Boom.
Lots of things to discuss. So
definitely, man. Yeah. Another good one. Happy Monday, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Yep. Peace.